Step 5. Admitted to ourselves and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. The Big Book states in regards to the fifth step that it is necessary for recovery, that it is an act of fearlessness, humility, and honesty. I have already said much on fearlessness and honesty, so I would like to focus on humility. In my opinion, these virtues work together and are reciprocal, each necessary for the other. One can only be humble if he is fearless and honest, and humility frees one from fear and self-deception. Humility is a vital virtue for recovery. Vital, meaning necessary for life. Without humility, the addict will die. It is through humility that we free ourselves from the bondage of self. Profound freedom is found in humility. Humility is a medicine that heals the soul of the addict and his relationship with others. The most important thing to understand about humility is that it is a sub-virtue of temperance, as it involves restraining and moderating the ego, according to reason, which is the truth. Humility is truth. Recall that temperance is the virtue that moderates the most powerful and necessary forces in life: food, drink, and sex. These forces are so powerful that when used selfishly, they can destroy us. Now, the ego is also a powerful and necessary force in the life of every man. Just as there is nothing intrinsically wrong with food and sex, there is nothing intrinsically wrong with the ego. The problem is that the ego is such a powerful effect in our life that it can destroy us if out of control. Therefore, a special virtue is necessary to moderate the ego. This is humility. The effect of temperance is internal order, and the fruit of order is serenity. The fifth step, being an act of humility, affects eternal order, and this is the heart of recovery. I would like to begin our discussion on humility with an analysis of a Catholic prayer called the Litany of Humility. This prayer contains a summary of recovery. Lord Jesus, meek and humble of heart, hear me. From the desire of being esteemed, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being loved, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being extolled, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being honored, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being praised, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being preferred to others, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being consulted, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being approved, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being humiliated, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being despised, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of suffering rebukes, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being calumniated, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being forgotten, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being ridiculed, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being wrong, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being suspected, deliver me, Jesus. That others may be loved more than I, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be esteemed more than I, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That, in the opinion of the world, others may increase and I may decrease, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be chosen and I set aside, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be praised and I unnoticed, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be preferred to me in everything, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may become holier than I, provided that I become as holy as I should, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. First, notice that this is a prayer. That means humility is a gift from God. That I cannot obtain humility on my own, but I need God. The very act of prayer is humbling. Pride and humility are primarily about our relationship with God. It is pride that stands up against God. It is the prideful man that inordinately hopes in himself, who says, I need no help, my efforts and powers are sufficient to obtain what I need. Humility must begin with the acknowledgement that God is needed, even to obtain humility. Of course, the person who recognizes the need for humility is already on the way. Notice the petition contains another contained in the litany. Deliver us. To deliver is to free from captivity. Of all the types of captivity in the world, the most profound is bondage to self. In humility, one gains freedom from the bondage of self. Humility is freedom. The purpose of freedom is to choose what is right. If a man chooses to remain faithful to his wife despite temptation, this is a powerful act of freedom and humility. I say humility because man submits himself to what is right. Yet if that man chooses to cheat on his wife, this act presupposes pride and bondage to self. What is it that enslaves us? Our desires and fears. This is congruent with what I have already said on the matter. It is distorted emotions that hinder our life and make up our egoism. It is our disordered desires and fears that block us from God and from genuine communion with others. Humility involves an emptying and pouring out of the self of these emotions that block us. Notice that the entire litany deals with our relationship with others. It is in our relationships that pride manifests. It is in our relationships that desire and fear hinder us. Nothing isolates as much as pride, for the prideful man cannot admit that he needs anyone else for anything. He assumes that he is self-sufficient. When the emotions of desire and fear are ordered, we can enter into communion with others. There can only be communion of persons when they share truth between them. The definition of humility is truth. Only with humility can we enter into genuine relationship with others. From the desire of being loved, deliver me, Jesus. There's nothing wrong with being loved, but with everything it is perverted by egoism. If one does not take, if all one does is take, one cannot give or receive love. To be free from the desire for love frees us to enter into love more profoundly. From the desire of being extolled, deliver me, Jesus. There is nothing wrong with being extolled when one does something good, especially if it is a virtue. The problem comes when we enter relationships with this desire as a motive, with an agenda. This desire blocks us from genuinely seeking the good of the other. The humble man is free to seek the good of the other, free to genuinely love. From the desire of being approved, deliver me, Jesus. As I said, humility and pride deal primarily with our relationship with God. The humble man does not seek approval from others because he knows his own worth before God. He knows his nothingness and his value and dignity before God. He knows that in the end, only God's opinion of him matters, for everything else in this world is passing away. From the fear of being calumniated, deliver me, Jesus. To be slandered is truly an evil that no one wants. The problem is when we act and make decisions based on fear, when we enter relationships based on fear. Fear, by definition, deals with a future evil. The future does not exist, so fear necessarily is an illusion. Problems arise when we act and make decisions based on illusions. There can be no genuine communion of persons based on an illusion. The humble man, being free from fear, can open himself up to others. From the fear of being humiliated, deliver me, Jesus. Humiliation is the surest way to humility. The humble man does not fear, not because he doesn't care about himself, but because he knows that these difficulties impart spiritual good on those who suffer them. And the good that the humble man seeks is freedom from egoism. Now, when we are free from desire and fear, what is the point? The point is to be genuinely selfish, to be free from self. That others may be loved more than I, Jesus grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be chosen and I set aside, Jesus grant me the grace to desire it. To put others before ourselves, to desire the good of others before oneself is a profound display of power. It is through putting others before oneself that recover from powerlessness occurs. When we enter into our relationships with genuine selflessness, this is what communion of persons is based on. This is love. Because happiness is found in communion with others, then humility is the foundation of happiness. As I have said, all we desire and seek is happiness. Yet happiness is a gift. It comes from without. It means we can only find our happiness in relationship with others. There is no such thing as isolated happiness. Of all the destruction that the alcoholic wreaks on his life, the saddest is the destruction of relationships. If recovery means regaining what is lost, then in order to recover, the alcoholic must repair his relationships. This is what the fifth step does. It repairs our relationship with God, with ourselves, and with others. As I have said, relationships must be founded on the truth. So the addict repairs these relationships with honesty and humility. The fifth step is a profound act of honesty. And because dishonesty divides oneself, the principal effect of honesty is integrity. In reference to the fifth step, the Big Book uses very strong language. It says these character defects must be cast out. The image that comes to my mind is an exorcism. The fifth step is a kind of exorcism. Another image that I like is, as I have already mentioned, humility is an emptying and pouring out of oneself. This is what the fifth step is, a self-emptying and abasement. The healing of relationships must begin with God. I must humble myself before God first. If I do not, I cannot have genuine relationship with myself or others. This is because there is a hierarchy in man's relationship. If I am a husband and father, and a brother and a friend, I am a husband and father before I am a brother and a friend. But before I am a husband and a father, I am a creature of God. The principal truth about myself is that I am a creature. All other attributes come secondary. If I were to use metaphysical language, I would say that my relationship with God is a substantial relationship. All other relationships are accidental. In admitting my character defects before God, I am saying, this is what I am capable of by myself. I am saying that I need God. I am affirming that I am a creature. To be a creature, to be created, is my innermost nature. Then humility is the subjugation of man before God, is the affirmation of this essential and primordial fact. The next important relationship is with myself. Sin divides us from ourselves. It causes blindness to self. I must repair my relationship with myself before I enter into a relationship with others. Notice the fifth step uses similar language to the first step, to admit. I take that to mean there is a relationship to the first step. The first step deals with the symptoms. The fifth step deals with something much deeper. Our moral life is the most significant attribute of ourself. It is the substance of our life. To admit that one has failed in the most important thing is no small order. But my relationship with myself must be founded on truth. Only when I admit my character defects can I change them. To use the language of the first step, we can say that one must concede to their innermost self their character defects. And this is the hardest thing to do. Why, I don't fully understand, but this act of humility cuts through any illusion we have about ourselves. It answers the question of who am I? The truth that I am a flawed human being in need of God. Humility is found in truth. In admitting one's character defects to oneself heals blindness to oneself. As I have said, humility is freedom. The ego binds us surer than anything. In admitting one's character defects to oneself, I am freeing myself from the bondage of self. Man is hardwired to certain ends by the natural law, but these ends are themselves means to a further end, an ultimate purpose, and as I have said repeatedly, this is happiness. But true happiness is only found in God. This happiness in God has a special name. It is called beatitude. One of these ends, the end through which we find God, is through relationship with others. In short, beatitude is found in a communion of persons. The two great Christian commandments are this: to love God with your whole mind, heart, strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So the ultimate purpose of man's life is tied up in love of his fellow man. Why is this? Well, to give the Christian answer to this question, first, because God is love. Second, because we are made in his image of likeness. When you love your fellow man, you are loving an image of God. Third, because in God there is a communion of persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. If creation is the work of a Trinity, then the universe can't but be a reflection of that Trinity. So it follows that in the human sphere, man reflects God through a communion of persons. Alcoholism destroys human relationships and causes isolation. For example, my mother once told me that when she was a girl, she had an uncle who showered her with affection. He would tell her how much he loved her, tell her she was special, compliment her on her skills, and she was rightly flattered by this attention. She told me how hurt she was when she found out he was drunk the whole time, that his affection was the result of inebriation. In short, alcohol renders what is true false. There can be no communion of persons on what is false. If the 12 steps are to effect genuine recovery, they must heal this. When we admit to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, we heal our relationship with others. The fifth step heals. One precept of the natural law is to love our neighbor as ourselves. Therefore, egoism and selfishness act against our nature and damage us. The surest way to heal egoism is through humiliation. By pouring out oneself, by emptying oneself, this humiliation, the fifth step, affects this humiliation in the fifth step affects a relationship of equality between persons, a sharing of humanness, which is naturally filled with flaws. Our relationships are healed by returning to equality. Equality is the foundation of a communion of persons.